Hello, I'm Bob Schieffer, and welcome to the CBS Evening News online edition. Just ahead, a bloody day in Iraq. 14 more Americans have been killed. Kimberly Dozier will have the details. Also, waiting for keys. The FEMA trailers have arrived in some damaged neighborhoods, but hurricane victims are not being permitted to use them. And managing your credit card debt. Trish Regan reports on some effective ways to get a handle on it. It's all starting now on the CBS Evening News online edition. It is turning out to be one of the worst 24-hour periods since the war began. 14 more Americans are dead, 3 today in a traffic accident, 1 who was hit by a rocket in Ramadi yesterday. And in the worst episode, the military disclosed that 10 Marines on foot patrol yesterday were killed when a bomb went off near Fallujah. That brings the American death toll in the war so far to 2,124. We go first to Kimberly Dozier in Baghdad.
Just as the Americans were trumpeting the success of a months-long counterinsurgency crackdown in western Iraq, insurgents hit back with multiple attacks. The worst in Fallujah, a roadside bomb that killed 10 Marines and injured 11 more. They'd been patrolling on foot near the town, which had supposedly been tamed after 2 massive military crackdowns. The attack happened on the same day masked gunmen in nearby Ramadi briefly overran some city streets. They released video to prove they controlled the city. The American sweep started in Tal Afar up north and has worked south through the towns along the border. Now U.S. and Iraqi troops are moving back towards Baghdad, making it harder, the Americans say, for the insurgents to do business.
Many militants, however, are getting tipped off to U.S. troop movements, and they're getting away. Then they're moving back to some of the towns that have already been cleared, like Fallujah. That may explain why this Marine patrol was there. A local contact tells us that 2 Marines were killed by an insurgent sniper in Fallujah this week, and the troops had come back in force to hunt him down. Bob?
You know, Kimberly, we hear reports, they tell us they've cleared out these areas, and then the next day something like this happens. Do you have any sense of which way this thing is going?
Well, U.S. commanders say the way they're measuring it, they are having a quantifiable effect, that they've seen the lowest rates of suicide car bombing in 7 months. They attribute that to the fact that the insurgents can't seem to get the cars or the bombers through this western pipeline through western Iraq, and so they're having to use roadside bombs because they're just easier to get.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Kimberly. Thank you. In South Florida, it is still hurricanes past that are the problem. People who lost their homes to Hurricane Wilma back in October are still waiting, we learn, for housing from FEMA. And that's not even the worst part. Here's Mark Strassman now with details.
Hurricane Wilma crushed Pat McGee's home, but it was FEMA that crushed her hope. 5 weeks later, she's still living under the only roof she has, her Buick Century.
You sleep right here.
I sleep right here.
And that has been
35 days.
Worse is that right across the street sits a brand new FEMA trailer, vacant. One of dozens of trailers that arrived here mid-November. That's when folks started waiting for keys.
A day of waiting turned into a week. And still, these homeless hurricane victims were kept out of trailers they could see right from their destroyed front porches. It was 13 days before any of them were allowed to move in.
I want this nightmare to end.
Bridget Soto has been sleeping in this tent right across from another empty trailer.
You want answers, you want it done, you want to get into the place, you want to move in and just start your life. And looking at that was just like a big tease. Like, here I am, and you can't move in.
The low point was Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
In the tent, in the car, guarding against looters.
That was depressing. That's depression.
FEMA says the trailers just weren't ready.
But you can't put people in a place like that without electricity and without sewer hookup and without water. It's not safe to do that.
But local leaders are furious.
Get people in the homes. If the homes are here, put them in them and work out the details later.
Finally, just this Tuesday, FEMA started taking applications to get into them. Bridget Soto qualified, so she moved right out of the tent and into a trailer.
This is a roof. That's all I wanted. It was just a roof over my head for my children to be together.
But Pat McGee is still under the same roof. FEMA said her name wasn't on its list. So for her, lights out meant her 36th night of sleeping in the car. Mark Strassman, CBS News, Davie, Florida.
In our series this week on credit card debt, we've shown you some of the risks and offered some suggestions on how to avoid going into debt. But what about getting out of debt once you're in the trap? Here is Trish Regan with some advice on that.
Dabney Oliver is 31 years old, single, and carrying $13,000 in credit card debt.
I look at my budget and it's really tight. You know, it's just like paycheck to paycheck.
Working for an advertising agency in San Francisco,
Seriously minor changes, just mostly copy changes. And then
her take-home pay is barely enough to cover expenses, which include $600 a month on her credit card debt.
The San Francisco Bay Area is one of the most expensive places in the country, so keeping up with the Joneses here is even harder. It's one reason why so many are tempted to charge their credit cards to the max.
I would just like to be out of debt, you know, more than anything, because I think that would just give me so much more freedom to do the things I want to do.
If you think you're the only one suffering, look around you. Probably a majority of the people walking by you when you walk down the street have got more credit card debt than they can comfortably handle.
A good first step out of the debt trap? Find a financial planner. We brought Dabney Oliver to David Yeski for some financial training.
People talk about credit cards as being dangerous, and they are.
The first thing a planner advises people to do, pay off the highest rate card before all others. If you're a homeowner, shift credit card balances to a home equity line of credit. The interest is lower and it's tax deductible. Finally, try to use credit cards only if you can pay them off each month.
These cards look well behaved. That could change.
In Dabney's case, she's become an expert at flipping, switching balances to cards with super low introductory rates.
Because I've kept my credit so good, they give me lots of offers, so I'm good about doing the flip around.
But if you miss a payment, interest rates can soar.
To some degree, the rates are almost predicated upon human frailty.
They think maybe you might screw up.
On average, I'm sure that they're collecting more than 3% or 0%.
But since Dabney's rates are so low, Yeski told her to pay a little less on her cards because he wants her to do what everyone should do. Save for retirement and save for an emergency fund.
I think she's going to be able to do it. I would bet money on it.
You're on a plan now.
I'm on a plan now.
Do you think you can follow it?
Oh, I know I can.
If she does, in 3 years, she'll be debt-free. Trish Regan, CBS News, San Francisco.
More stories are just a click away, but don't forget to join me on television for the on-air edition of the CBS Evening News. On Monday's broadcast, underarm shaving, the use of antiperspirants, and breast cancer. Is there a link? We'll investigate in a series of reports. For CBSNews.com, I'm Bob Schieffer.